You see his face on the dollar bill. His name is on the Capitol. Let's be honest, George Washington almost feels more like a monument than a real person. He's the stoic marble father of his country. But the man behind the legend? That's the real story. And it doesn't start with a president. It starts with a tough, ambitious kid on the frontier, trying to make a name for himself. George wasn't born at the top. His family was respectable, but he didn't get to go to Europe for a fancy education like other rich Virginians. His was all practical, math and surveying, and at just 16 years old, he's trekking through the rugged, dangerous wilderness, mapping the Shenandoah Valley. This isn't a desk job. It's tough, gritty work. It hardens him, makes him resilient, and gives him a lifelong feel for the land. His whole life changes when his older brother dies, and he eventually inherits the place that will become his lifelong obsession, a beautiful estate on the Potomac River called Mount Vernon. But before he can settle down, his military career kicks off during the French and Indian War, and his first few assignments? Honestly, they were disasters. He's sent on a diplomatic mission in the dead of winter. He fails. He's at the center of the war's first shots, and ends up surrendering his first command at a place called Fort Necessity. Not a great start. But then comes the moment that makes him a legend. He's an aide to the British General Braddock, and they walk straight into a catastrophic ambush. The British army is routed. Braddock is killed. It's chaos. But Washington? He's everywhere, riding fearlessly through the bullets, trying to rally the panicked survivors. When he gets back to camp, he finds 4 bullet holes in his coat and 2 horses shot out from under him. He was completely unharmed. Suddenly, he's the hero of Virginia. He learned a lot, the hard way, about how not to fight a war. After the war, he goes home. He marries a wealthy widow, Martha Custis, which makes him one of the richest men in Virginia. He throws himself into Mount Vernon, not just as a farm, but as a science project. He's experimenting with new crops, ditching tobacco for wheat, even designing this really cool 16-sided barn. He's also a local politician in the Virginia House of Burgesses. He wasn't a loud, fiery speaker like his friend Patrick Henry. He was the quiet, serious guy in the room whose judgment everyone trusted. And when Britain started passing new taxes, he was quietly, firmly, and totally opposed. When things finally boiled over at Lexington and Concord, Washington showed up to the Second Continental Congress in his uniform. It was a power move. He didn't have to say a word. The message was clear. I'm ready to fight. The Congress, needing someone to unite all the colonies, unanimously made him commander-in-chief. But what an impossible job! He didn't have an army. He had a collection of angry farmers, ill-equipped and untrained. The war was long, and for a lot of it, Washington lost. He drove the British from Boston, only to be humiliated and chased out of New York. His army was starving, barefoot, and just about to quit. The whole revolution was on the brink of failure. And that's when he proves his greatness. It's Christmas night, 1776. The cause is all but dead. He pulls off a miracle, crossing the icy Delaware River in a blizzard to launch a surprise attack on the Hessians at Trenton. He wins. And at Princeton, he wins again. Just like that, he saves the revolution. His genius wasn't in brilliant battlefield tactics. His genius was resilience. He was the one man who simply refused to quit. He held the army together through the hell of Valley Forge, the starvation, the cold, the disease. It was his sheer willpower, with help from allies like the Marquis de Lafayette and Baron von Steuben, that forged a real army. Finally, at Yorktown, with critical help from the French fleet, he traps the main British army. They surrender. The war was over. He had won. And now we get to the most important part of his story. Washington has an army. He's a hero. He could have been a king. That's what heroes did back then. Instead, he travels to Congress, and in a deeply emotional ceremony, he resigns his command. He gives all that power back. This stunned the world. It was the moment that proved the revolution was real. He wasn't fighting for power. He was fighting for an idea. Of course, he couldn't stay retired. The new country, under the Articles of Confederation, was a mess. So he's called back to preside over the Constitutional Convention. He barely said a word, but his presence, his authority, is what held it all together and gave the new Constitution the legitimacy it needed. When the Constitution was law, there was only one choice for president. He was elected unanimously. He knew that everything he did would set a precedent. He had to invent the presidency from scratch. He creates the cabinet. He insists on being called Mr. President, not Your Highness. He even leads troops as president to put down the Whiskey Rebellion, proving the new federal government was for real. It wasn't easy. His two smartest cabinet members, Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson, hated each other, and their feud started the political parties Washington warned against. But he kept the country together and, most importantly, kept it out of Europe's wars. When he was done, he stepped down, offering a farewell address that warned against party fighting and entangling alliances, advice we still talk about today. He finally got to go home to Mount Vernon, the most famous man in the world. He died just a couple of years later after catching a cold while riding his horse in freezing rain. Now, we have to be honest about his legacy. It's complicated. Washington was a champion of liberty who owned hundreds of enslaved people. It's a massive, painful contradiction that we still wrestle with. He clearly wrestled with it, too. In his will, he did something no other slave-owning founder did. He ordered all of his slaves to be freed. A final act that was important, but tragically, came far too late. So who was he? Not a brilliant general, not a deep philosopher. He was a man of unbelievable character and ironclad discipline. He held the army together with pure willpower. He gave the Constitution his personal stamp of approval, and he showed the world that true power is knowing when to give it away. He really was, as one contemporary called him, the indispensable man,